In today's video, we continue on with our NHL season preview series. As we know, we're working our way through the teams in the Atlantic Division. Today, we look at the Ottawa Senators, who took a massive step last year, made the playoffs for the first time in a long time. Can they get back to the playoffs? It will be more challenging this year, but we'll take a look at how the team has changed and if they can repeat or even improve upon last year's performance. And that's coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned today, we continue our season preview series as we work our way through teams in the Atlantic Division first up, and we've already covered at this point Montreal, Boston, Buffalo, and Detroit. Now we work our way to the other four teams. We'll start with the Ottawa Senators. So in case you're new to this series, we're going to quickly recap what transpired for the team last year, take a look at some team and individual numbers from 24-25. We'll take a look at additions, subtractions, where their cap space is at, any rookies who could impact their lineup this year, any trades we might see, contract extensions, and then of course we'll look at their projected lineup and discuss the top questions facing the team and how they might do for the coming year. So let's first start by looking at what transpired most recently here in 24-25. As I mentioned, the Sens had a pretty good season, putting up 97 points with a record of 45-30-7. First year under new head coach Travis Green, things went relatively well. Green really focused hard on the defensive side of the game, getting the numbers down to a much more sustainable level for goals against was a massive, big piece of the puzzle for Green and the Senators this past year. And for some people, I know we heard a lot of harping on the offensive side for Ottawa and how maybe they took a step back, but they took a step back on the offense because they were really focusing on playing better team defense. They scored 242 goals still, which was 18th best. They gave up 232 against, though, which was 13th best. That's a massive jump forward in the goals against department. For them to be that high, I mean, they've been stuck in the bottom 5 to 8 teams in the league for quite a number of years. So to jump up to 13 was a big improvement. And yeah, they might not have scored quite as much as a result of that strong effort on the defensive side, but it paid its dividends. They won a lot more games, and I think as they get the defensive part down pat, and obviously it'll become more second nature, and they can learn to play that way while still contributing even more on the offensive side. So I do think that we'll see some improvements there. Of course, they had positive goal differential, +10. They made the playoffs. They were the first wildcard team. Ended up doing a division provincial rivalry for round one, Leafs versus Sens, Battle of Ontario, which was a lot of fun to watch. They ended up unfortunately falling to the Leafs 4-2 in a six-game series, but ultimately, things didn't start well for the Sens. You could tell a lot of these guys never had a chance to play in the playoffs before. There's a few that did, but generally speaking, the bulk of their core, it was the first time. And they started with some nervous energy, made a few mistakes, got behind early. And the first, 3 games, I think it was, all went to overtime. They were right there, but they didn't have a few things go their way. And ultimately get behind in the series. But then they came back, they played their best hockey in probably games 4 and 5, and they almost won game 6. So ultimately, they started slow, but they learned a lot, and I think that's something they can probably build upon. They were going on, if they wouldn't have made the playoffs, it was going on in 8 years. They hadn't made the playoffs since 2017. When they unexpectedly went on a run and went to the Eastern Conference Final. And then even then, they were in Game 7 double overtime. They were 1 goal away from going to the Stanley Cup Final, which they could have won the Cup that year because they would have played Nashville. And I do think, based on where Nashville was at, that any team coming out of the East would have been favored to win in that Cup, and it ended up being the Penguins, of course. But that's how close they were. And then the wheels fell off. Things really took a massive turn for the negative with the franchise in more ways than one. And, well, it's been some dark days, but the positive times are coming back here, of course. Now, of course, we saw their top scorers were led by Tim Stützle, again, 79 points. A couple of years back, he was a 90-point player. Stützle also was dealing with some injuries last year. Nothing too serious, but did have a few nagging things that happened early on, which did impact him a bit. Jake Batherson ended up being number 2 in scoring at 68 points. Jake Sanderson at 57. Brady Tkachuk only had 55 points, still had pretty good goal totals. He also missed, I think it was around 10 games after the Four Nations. He and his brother both come out of that tournament making big names for themselves, but also came away with some reasonably big injuries. Matthews were more serious than Brady's, but still, it was an impactful tournament in more ways than one. Claude Giroux was fifth in team scoring with 50 points, but looking at what they accomplished, 97 points, much better defensive play, and look at the offensive numbers. Brady Tkachuk only 55 points, where a couple of years back he was almost a 40-goal scorer. So to be honest, he can be much better offensively and put up bigger points. Jake Sanderson had a slow start to the season. A lot of people thought he was putting a lot of pressure on himself to make that Four Nation tournament, which he didn't make out of the get-go, but became a call-up as an injury replacement when Quinn Hughes went down. So ultimately he got to play there anyways and had a pretty good showing, but the first 2 months of the year were not typical Jake Sanderson player. And then as this year went on, he got a lot better and had a really strong second half, finished with 57 points. And I think, to be honest, that Sanderson can probably be a 60, 70-point player moving forward. He's only going to continue to get better. So I do think that, Stützle can get back to being a 90-point player. Tkachuk can get back to being probably 30 to 40 goals and 70-plus points. And Sanderson has another gear. Like, this team, like I said, still accomplished a lot with their top players focusing on defense and not putting up as many offensive numbers. So we'll see where that goes, but I do think it's promising. Of course, we saw a big trade with the Sens and the Sabres late near the deadline, sending fan favorite Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard-Docker to the Sabres for Dylan Cousins and Dennis Gilbert. Obviously picked up Fabian Zetterlund in a separate trade as well with the Sharks, who there's a lot of hope for Zetterlund's role with the team moving forward as well. Cousins, of course, had immediate chemistry with Drake Batherson. They had played together in the World Championships before and had become friends off the ice, so that certainly helped transition that move a little bit easier as well. But of course, Norris, longtime line mate and friend to Batherson too. So there was certainly. Drake's probably the player on the team that was impacted the most by that trade, but thankfully had good chemistry with both guys. Going into the year, they have $3.5 million in space, so if they want to make another move, they want to make another addition, there is the option to do that. Take a look at how the team has changed in the additions and subtractions, starting with players that are no longer with the team here on the subtraction side. Anton Forsberg, who had finally found a home in Ottawa after being bounced around on waivers, settled in as like a 1A, 1B scenario for a few years there in Ottawa. Forsey gave them some good outings, but was a little bit inconsistent, and with a thin goalie market on the UFA and the emergence of Levi Marilyn, it just made sense for Forsberg to chase the money elsewhere and for Ottawa to move on. So he ended up getting a 2-year deal over $2 million in LA. So Ottawa was not going anywhere near that. Made sense for him. They also lost Adam Gaudette in free agency, who had signed a 1-year deal as well, and ended up being a nice revelation. He ended up starting the year as the fourth-line center with some early injuries and players out of the lineup. He ended up getting elevated to a top 6 role for a good chunk of the early part of the year. Started racking up the goals, got some power play time, had career highs. Of course, he had played previously with Travis Green in Vancouver, so there's a familiarity there. But of course, with Gaudette's season, as much as they were interested in maybe keeping him, again, a player who had a career season on a short deal, who was going to be able to cash in elsewhere. He got a bigger contract in San Jose. Matthew Highmore departs as well. I believe he's signed with the Islanders. Again, a fringe player who was a veteran in Belleville and a call-up option for them. Veterans defensemen Dennis Gilbert and Travis Hamonic both gone. Gilbert had a short tenure with the Sens, small role. Most fans probably won't even notice he's gone, unfortunately. And Travis Hamonic, who has been there for a few years, I think a lot of the fan base would have liked to have seen him leave sooner, to be honest. He's a great guy, great character person. I don't think anybody would doubt that. But it seemed like the game had kind of passed by him, and that he was, I'm surprised he got a contract in Detroit on a 1-year deal, to be honest. But Ottawa certainly saw the opportunity to move on and upgrade after making some other acquisitions here. Now, on the addition side, they signed a veteran fourth line centerman, and Lars Eller, who will replace Gaudette. Might not get as many goals as he did out of Gaudette, but Eller will play a more steady two-way game. Obviously has lots of experience there. Long time with the Habs to start his career, then between the Caps and the Penguins. So this he's won. He's been a part of some really good teams, great experience, good two-way guy, older veteran who can provide some leadership. So there's lots to like there. Of course, they also brought in Arthur Kaliev from the LA Kings, formerly of the Kings, was with the Rangers, ended up not getting qualified, became a UFA. Of course, the ownership and GM for Ottawa, familiar with Kaliev as he played for the junior team that Staios used to run under Michael Landauer in Hamilton. So they know what he's capable of. He's got a wicked shot. He can score. Hasn't really found a steady home in the NHL just yet, but they're hoping that he might be he might not be a player that gets a regular everyday role right off the bat, but somebody who can fill in and maybe make the most of his opportunity and maybe stick around for a longer stretch. We'll see. Of course, they also brought in another former King, Jordan Spence, who was traded by LA to Ottawa after new GM Ken Holland basically decided he wanted to bring in some veteran guys like Brian Dumoulin and Cody Ceci. So they traded Spence, who basically between Spence and Brant Clark, it was pretty well known one of them was going to likely get moved, that they weren't really wanting to have both in their lineup at the same time. And Clark's a little bit more highly touted given where he was drafted. So Spence, according to Ken Holland, became expendable, and they got him pretty cheap price. And for his age and how he plays and the ability to move the puck and skate well, I really think he's going to be a nice upgrade over Hamonic, and will be able to probably play an elevated role if need be. They also signed Hunter Shepard, who comes in to provide a little bit of depth in the goaltending department. He'll likely rework here with Matt Sogard to be the veteran goaltending tandem in the American Hockey League for Belleville. At least that's what you would think, but it could be an option for call-up if need be. Been around the game a long time. Not really a super experience at the NHL level for a number 3, but it's somebody that can provide some stability in the farm team, which is much needed down there. They also brought back Nick Cousins, who was going to be a subtraction by the looks of things, but did get re-signed on another one-year deal. As far as rookies to watch who could impact this roster this year, the main one to watch is Carter Yakimchuk. Based on the projections here, we'll probably project that he likely does go to the American Hockey League to start. But if he has a training camp like he did last year, he could make the decisions interesting. So we'll see where things go with Yakimchuk, but he will be a player that I would expect to play NHL games this year and at least make things interesting. Like I said, I know it's kind of hard to say where things are at. We know last year his offense in junior took a step back, but his defensive game was something that was heavily being worked on. So be curious to see how the jump to pro affects him and how he does with it, for sure. As far as trades that can go, I mean, there's really nobody per se on this roster that appears to be, a goner or somebody that's, highly expected to be moved. Not to say that they couldn't pull something off, but there's really nothing obvious right now as far as guys who could get moved out. But right now, they've got I think they're pretty happy with their depth, and they're pretty content to move forward with the group they have. As far as contract extensions go, there are a few that could be impactful, that they could get done this year or before the season even starts. The main one and the biggest one being centerman Shane Pinto. Pinto is a player that's becoming more and more important and has become a part of the core, and they'd love to get him locked up long term. I know his agent is somebody who's notorious for being difficult to negotiate with, in my opinion. So we'll see where it goes. But Pinto still would be restricted, so that they don't really have any concerns on losing him. But he would be the main player that they could be doing an extension with this year. Jordan Spence could also get one, but like I said, I think they want to see the fit and how he does. He'd be restricted as well, so no big rush. Levi Marilainen signed a 1-year deal, so he's eligible, but not until January. And again, depending on how he does in his role here with Ullmark, we'll see where things go. He could be signed in the second half of the season on an extension, or they could wait. Again, he'll be restricted as well, so they don't have to be really too concerned that way. I mean, Claude Giroux also on a 1-year deal will be UFA at the end of it, but This like last year where he has bonuses and everything built in, I suspect it's going to be something that won't really be looked at until the season's over. So we'll see. Now the projected lineup for the Sens on opening night, we would suspect the goaltending duo will be Linus Ullmark and Levi Meriläinen. Ullmark would be in his second year with the team. Had a pretty good season last year, but I still think Ullmark can be a little bit better again. It's not unusual for a goalie to have, some ups and downs with his new team, getting used to the D and how the team plays in front of him. But generally speaking, he had some fantastic runs last year where he was one of the best goalies in the league. I do think, but overall, the overall body of work for the whole year, it could stand to be a little bit better based on the standard we've seen from him before. But still, nothing to be upset about at all. Meriläinen was really strong last year too. So there's every reason to think that they should have, and I just, stress should have pretty solid goaltending. On the D core, we should see Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub, Thomas Chabot with Nick Jensen as your top four. Your third pair is likely going to be Tyler Clevin and Jordan Spence, with Nicholas Matinpalo fighting for ice time on the right side as well. Now, there is a possibility that Jensen may not be ready to start the year after having a fairly significant surgery in the offseason, although we've seen him training and skating and whatnot. But there's still some reports that say he may not be ready for the very beginning of the season, which could create an opportunity for Spence to elevate and Matinpalo to get back to his spot. And then depending on how everybody does, be curious to see where the decisions lie when Jensen's ready and healthy to come back. As far as your forward group, the top lines right now is projected to be Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk. That's no big surprise. They're your top winger and your top centerman. But right now on the right side, there's expected that every opportunity will be given to Fabian Zetterlund to nail down that spot. We saw Giroux play there a lot last year, and he could still be there as well. To me, Giroux is a guy who can move around in a variety of spots. He's pretty versatile in that sense, but I think with the contract they gave the Zetterlund, it makes a ton of sense that he will be given an opportunity to try to claim that role and to become a more prolific scorer for the team. Second line should be Dylan Cousins and Drake Batherson being your main duo there, and they're probably going to give an opportunity again for David Perron, although he won't be that winger all the time. At his age and how he played last year, he had some times where he was really, really good. And then there was other times where he was a little inconsistent, but he also had a lot going on off the ice last year. David Perron had him and his wife were having a baby as the season began, and they ran into a lot of complications, so there was a lot of family stuff off the ice, and then he came back, played well for a while, then he got hurt, and then he came back, played well for a while again, but then of course, like anybody, had some ups and downs, but he's also new to the team. A lot of family stuff going on. Had an injury. I think this year is a much better potential for him to have a more consistent season. So again, I think there were times late in the season and into the playoffs where he was really good on that line. But you have guys who can step up and take that spot if he's not performing. You get Giroux who could jump up and play between him and Batherson. One could play their off wing. Or you could put Ridley Gregg up there as well. You could even give Kaliev a shot when he's in the lineup, depending on if they have any other injuries or whatnot. Your third line likely going to be Shane Pinto, Ridley Gregg, and Claude Giroux, which is a really good third line as well. You've got a good two-way centerman in Pinto. He and Gregg did a lot of penalty killing last year. Played a lot together, 5-on-5 too. And Giroux, again, another penalty killer who can be great on faceoffs, which is why part of the reason why he played so much with Stützle too. So again, that's another thing. You take Giroux away from Stützle, and he's going to have to take more faceoffs. So depending on how things are going there, that'll impact the lines as well. But that's likely how things will look so far. Your fourth line likely will be Lars Eller with Michael Amadio and Nick Cousins. Now, Amadio played a lot in the third line last year with Pinto and Gregg, and a great fit there as well. So again, depending on what's going on with Perron, there's times when maybe Amadio is on that third line with Pinto and Gregg. Giroux maybe jumps up with Cousins and Batherson. Perron maybe comes down, could play even on the fourth line with Eller. So there's lots of versatility there. I suspect Kaliev will either be sent to Belleville or could be the 13th forward and kind of be in and out of the lineup. So we'll see where things stand on that front. Now, as far as the top questions facing the team going into the season, One is, can they improve their 5-on-5 scoring? I know I see a lot of the fan base harping on their lack of 5-on-5 or even strength scoring. But like I said before, a large part of that was what the coach had them focusing on. This coaching staff harped defense first, and a lot of these guys were really learning to focus on becoming stronger, better defensive players. So that, to me, is a big reason why the 5-on-5 scoring took a dip, for sure. And I think naturally it's going to get better just with the fact that they've got a full season of playing under Travis Green, playing how he wants, playing his systems, and learning to be better defensive players. Once you get more comfortable with that, you're not going to have to think so much about it, and the offense should come a little bit better. So to be honest, I think it's going to happen to some degree naturally, and then with how the team is kind of lined up here, with a few minor changes, I do think that they will get better. It was actually a lot better towards the end of the season. And I know sometimes some fans have also harped on the idea that the Sens had a quiet offseason. They didn't do enough to build on what they did. Well, you got to remember, they did most of their heavy lifting at the trade deadline. Like back in March was a big couple of moves for Steve Staios, right? You brought in Cousins for Norris. That was massive. He fit well with Batherson. 5-on-5 really did improve under Cousins' play. Josh Norris was not providing a lot, as much as he was a popular player, and for good reason, but he was struggling 5-on-5. He did not have a good part of the year, and I'm not blaming it all on him, but he certainly played a role in that. Cousins, after that trade, things did improve. So I think there's that. Plus you throw in Zetterlund. Again, players coming to a new team, getting a reduced role in the beginning, letting him get comfortable. I expect him to really take off and be a much more confident player, getting a chance to play with Stützle this year. So, again, I do think the 5-on-5 scoring, it needs to improve for them to move forward, and I think that everything is there for that to happen. Just people need to remember all the moves at the deadline is why they didn't have to do a lot in the offseason, really. They added some more depth, with Allred replacing Gaudette. Jordan Spence comes in. That's a sneaky good little move as well. They get Kaliev as a reclamation project who could work out, right? So they really didn't have to do a lot, and they did, in my opinion, enough to kind of fill some holes based on where things were at. But there wasn't that many to fill based on all the work that they did at the March deadline. But of course, and you look at the injury time that was missed last year as well. So and all you add that all up. And to me, it does make for a good opportunity for 5-on-5 to improve. Now, can the decor continue to get better as well? That's a big question mark, and I think it can. Jake Sanderson, like I said, had not a good first part of the season, so I suspect he'll be better to start. And then you remove Hamonic, you add Spence, you get Jensen's injury. Jensen was actually playing hurt for probably 2/3 of the year. So, again, that's impactful. Zub missed time. So if they can stay healthy, then I do think that the decor will continue to get better. And just like I said, the addition of Spence for Hamonic alone should see some pretty good positive improvements there. Shane Pinto's ability to really impact this team is another thing to watch this year. A big question mark is, can he go off offensively finally? And I suspect after what went down last year that he's going to be looking for more power play time, and I think that Travis Green is going to have to learn to play Pinto in all situations. He played a lot, of course, on the defensive zone starts. He played a lot, did some penalty killing, but I think he deserves some power play time, even if it's power play too. So to be honest, I think we're going to see Pinto's role expand even more and play a bigger role in all three, whether it be 5-on-5, PP, or PK. But obviously his ability to continue expanding his role will also be critical. The goaltending as well, another question mark. With Linus Ullmark settled in, can he get closer to his Ullmark season where he won the Vezina? So can Ullmark be Vezina winning Ullmark is what I'm trying to say here. And, between that and with Marilainen, he was amazing last year. Now, it was a small sample size, but the kid was awesome. Can they build on that? Can he be that good in a bigger sample size? That's the question mark. I don't think it's fair to think that Marilainen can play at that level for a bigger, like, it's bound to come down a little bit. But with Ullmark settling in, if he can get closer to his Ullmark, to the Vezina winning Ullmark season, and if Marilainen can be pretty close to what he was last year, even if it comes down a little bit, they could have really good goaltending. So in all aspects of this team, it's possible that the goaltending could be as good or better. It's possible that the decor could get better. And it's possible to me that the 5-on-5 scoring is going to produce more, so the forward group will be even more productive. So can this team get back to the playoffs? I absolutely think they can. Can they make a higher push in the standings? Maybe, but it's going to be tough. If you look at teams like the Leafs and the Panthers and the Lightning, can they get up there? I mean, if you look at last year's standings, they were only 2 points behind Florida. I don't think Florida going for a three-peat is going to care too much about where they fit in the regular season. They're going to get in the playoffs and be a whole different animal again. But so because of that, I don't know how Florida's regular season is going to go. But I do suspect those three teams to be really tough for them to get ahead of. So at the very least, I think they can be probably pretty solid for that number 4 spot and be at least a wild card team again. But I do think it's possible. I wouldn't put the odds super high, but I do think it's remotely possible that depending on how those other teams do, that maybe they could get into the top. I mean, look at the Leafs. They lost Mitch Marner, right? So you wonder how they're going to be affected. They've added some interesting players, but you don't know how that's going to go. You get the Lightning, another year older, but again, it's still a really good team. The Panthers have played a ton of hockey, 3 straight years in the finals. Matthew Tkachuk's on the shelf for the first few months of the year. How are they going to do? Are they going to finally, kind of get tired, if you will, and be a team that somebody can overtake? That's the big questions, and we don't know. So, I mean, teams like Ottawa and Montreal, who made the playoffs last year, are going to be pushing to try to at least stay there, if not move forward. And it's possible that one or both might be able to do that. So we'll see what happens here. But let me know your thoughts and your opinions on what will happen for the Senators this season in the comments. We will discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll continue this series here tomorrow with another team coming up as well. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.